10 superhero movie disasters still must-watches in the 21st century. Superhero movies have dominated the box office and pop culture, with iconic films like The Dark Knight and Spider-Man leading the way. But long before the modern superhero boom, audiences have been captivated by stories of costumed heroes using their powers for good. However, not all superhero films are created equal. Over the years, plenty have been deemed outright terrible. But even among the bad ones, there's a spectrum. Some are painfully unwatchable, while others are so entertainingly awful that they become cult favorites. Whether they're unintentionally hilarious, misunderstood, or just overhated, here's a ranking of bad superhero movies based on how much fun they are to watch, from the least to the most must-see. 10. Morbius, 2022. Directed by Daniel Espinosa, probably the only movie that has ever flopped at the box office twice. The woefully miscalculated Morbius was the project that really made it clear that Sony's Spider-Man-less universe just wasn't going to work. Poorly written, poorly paced, poorly acted, and with the most generic of generic plots, it's one of the most noteworthy failures of 21st century Hollywood, despite its poor performance all across the board. Though, Morbius has become a crucial part of contemporary meme culture. From the silly catchphrase, "It's Morbin time," to clips of Matt Smith sweeping the dance floor, the film isn't exactly so but it's good. Quite frankly, it's just bad, but the hilarious reaction it has left in its path, not in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, 2003, directed by Stephen Norrington, both overhated and somewhat forgotten. The 2003 disaster The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stars Sean Connery and is loosely based on the comic series by Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill. The film is an absurd spectacle, packed with nonsensical events and characters whose motivations are just as baffling. But that's exactly where its campy appeal lies. Is it a good movie? Not at all. The plot is a tangled mess. The performances are forgettable, and the CGI is laughably bad. But despite its many flaws, there's an undeniable charm in its chaotic execution. The idea of assembling iconic public domain characters in a steampunk adventure is fantastic, even if the execution falls flat. For those in the mood for a superhero film that's more so-but-dits fun than genuinely great, this one is worth a watch. 8. Captain America, 1990. Directed by Albert Pyun, the 2000s marked the redemption of the superhero genre. But the 90s? Not so much. That decade produced some truly dreadful films, and few are as infamous as 1990's Captain America. Long before Chris Evans made Steve Rogers a cinematic icon, Matt Salinger turned him into, well, a punchline. A funny one, sure, but a punchline nonetheless. While the film saw a theatrical release internationally, it went straight to video in the EU, and for good reason. Too violent for kids, yet too poorly made for adults, it exists in a strange limbo, unsure of its target audience, and ultimately appealing to no one. Despite this, a small cult following has emerged, with Marvel fans reveling in its unintentional hilarity and bargain bin production values. Catwoman, 2004. Directed by Pitoff, one of the most infamous action films of the 2000s. Catwoman needs no introduction. Where to even begin with the many reasons why it's considered one of the worst films of the 2000s. It's such a mistreatment of the source material that it's insulting to fans. It's so poorly written, edited, and directed that it's hard to believe it's real. And though Halle Berry tries her damnedest, there's nothing else here that's redeemable. Though many would call Catwoman boring, its badness is so off the wall and wild that it's sincerely hard not to find something here to enjoy unironically. Berry's charisma is like a shield for viewers to be able to tolerate all the unbelievably bad special effects, dialogue, and storylines. Even aside from all of that, Catwoman is a must-see for superhero film fans, if only to see how a movie in the genre should not be made. The Puma Man, 1980. Directed by Alberto De Martino, one of the many films made prominent by Mystery Science Theater 3000, a comedy show where colorful characters watch old so-bad-they're-good B pictures. The Puma Man is one of the most atrociously made disasters that ever screened on the series. Though not nearly as well known as something like Manos, The Hands of Fate, this English-language Italian production is just as bad. Amateurish all across the board, though particularly awful-looking whenever Puma Man, Walter George Alton, flies. This Soboditskud classic is obligatory watching for those who don't understand how atrocious superhero movies garner cult followings. Ugly, cheesy, and nonsensical in every way imaginable. Madame Web, 2024, directed by S. Clarkson. 2024 saw the release of plenty of terrible movies, but many would argue that none were as laughably awful as the one that put yet another nail in the coffin of Sony's Spider-Man-less universe, Madame Web. Similar to Morbius, the film has been memed to oblivion, and it's now an essential part of contemporary pop culture. Without a doubt, or any room for debate, Madame Web is one of the most awful movies of the 2020s so far. It's very possible to make superhero origin story movies work, just not like this. Even if it were a student film, it would still be unforgivably messy, poorly edited, even more poorly written, and bizarre to the point that it must be seen to be believed. Madame Web is a spectacle of bad creative decisions and a showcase of Sony's complete, out-of-touch view of what Marvel fans want in a movie. For Steel, 1997, directed by Kenneth Johnson, it happens less often now. But once upon a time, athletes were obsessed with trying their hand at a Hollywood career. Sometimes it turned out okay. Other times you gotta steal. Shaquille O'Neal is about as good an actor as he is a three-point shooter, and he proved it in this ridiculous parade of superhero story cliches and complete lack of artistic craft. Due to its completely boring protagonist, Shaq's dull performance, the surface-level themes of social harmony, and a surprising amount of sentimentalism found in the script, Steel tends to be present in any and all conversations about the worst movies of all time. Nevertheless, it's a campy and enjoyable kind of disaster in many ways. Those looking for genuine quality or enjoyment are better off looking elsewhere. Mystery Men, 1999, directed by Kinka Usher, an ensemble comedy featuring stars of the stature of Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, and Hank Azaria. Mystery Men is nowhere near as atrocious as many of its bad superhero flick peers, but what it is 10 times as fun and rewatchable. Much of that comes from the fact that it's not very good at all, but it's more than enough to provide an absurd good time. Poorly paced with overstuffed with characters, terrible editing, and incredibly erratic pacing. It's not a particularly clever or well-constructed superhero spoof. Nevertheless, Mystery Men is a remarkably entertaining one. Its oddball humor may not always work, but it's refreshing and effective enough to have a solid time. The cast does an admirable job, and there are a few awesome laughs to be had here and there. Howard the Duck, 1986. Directed by Willard Huyck, despite being one of the trashiest movies of the 80s, the infamous Howard the Duck still somehow manages to find ways to be worthwhile. It's repulsively sexual, head-scratchingly strange, and tonally puzzling, but those qualities are precisely what gives it the kind of fever dream quality that makes it a must-see. It's not an enjoyable film in the traditional sense of the word, but there's just something about it. That something is definitely not the special effects, which are pretty awful. It's also definitely not the directing or performances, which fail on every level imaginable, even if there is a hint of self-awareness in Lea Thompson's work. It's not even the humor, which barely ever lands and is often more cringeworthy than funny. Nevertheless, Batman and Robin, 1997, directed by Joel Schumacher, one of the most terrible yet most iconic cult classics of the 90s. Batman and Robin is the movie that killed the Batman franchise before Christopher Nolan was able to revive it with Batman Begins in 2005. For those who love camp galore, bad puns, bat credit cards, and bat nipples, this is a must-see. For everyone else, it kind of is still an obligatory watch, too. Batman and Robin is one of the most rewatchable bad movies of the decade. The kind of you must see it to believe it train wreck that every movie fan must watch at least once. It's a disaster of titanic proportions, a collection of questionable creative decisions that is irresistibly and unironically funny to watch. Is it any good in the traditional sense? Not in any way, shape, or form. But is it so bad that it's the gold standard for so bad they're good superhero gems? Absolutely. And there you have it. 10 superhero movie disasters that left fans disappointed. Some of these had so much potential, but ended up crashing harder than a failed superhero landing. Which one do you think was the biggest disaster? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more epic movie breakdowns, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching.